It's Dandadan, the only show where we talk about Dandadan, a manga about the Dum-Da-Dums. Before we begin, I challenge you to get this video to 250 likes, 15 new subscribers, and please check out my video where I explain Centuria's first arc, links in the description. So as you know, Dandadan went viral last week because I'm broke and I like to read. I have patience. Basically, this chapter was more or less sort of that come down chapter from the fallout of all those really bad takes last week. And trust me, I'm not going to play devil's advocate here. We don't do that in this channel. Chapter 231 picks up from 230 as we see Ira holding Okarune's hand Atori with a rather self-aware line, "What should we do? We've more or less seen it all." Which to me reads like, yeah, Tatsu knows what he is doing. While on the flip side, Gigi wants to go see Daisonors with Momo, who I might add is still very adamant that none of this is a date, and even wants Gigi to let go of her hand. But he says in response that he is sending his chi to Momo through his hand so that the pain in her chest would reside. In contrast, Ira simply wants Okarune to keep holding her hand a bit longer, and Momo, who tells Gigi his handhold is probably bull crap. Still reluctant to believe, of course, which is, I think, a rather important detail here. Momo seems to retain this through line of a lack of trustworthiness. Even when she overall makes strides to trust them through one event or the other, subconsciously even then, Momo isn't trustworthy of the people around her, as evident by her not trusting a single word Gigi says in regards to the hand-holding chi thing. This is a very obvious hint, or at least should be an obvious hint, that something isn't right here, which is evident by the name of the chapter. It's like Tatsu is whacking people over the head to beg them to just start paying attention and think before they blab on social media. I'm so tired of it. The two couplets then cross paths as they all stare at one another. Okarune and Momo and Naira and Gigi, so they all point at one another, except for Okarune, who is quite literally begins to die through the rest of this chapter. Seriously though, what a beautiful spread, and the detail of Okarune's legs wobbling as if he's dancing to a 50s rock and roll song. Oh my god, it's almost a bit of totes, if I'm not gonna lie. Momo then calls out to Okarune, who calls him an asshole and a cheater who lied and is secretly some womanizer who tells women anything they want to hear to get close to them. To which Okarune defiantly foams at the mouth. Ira, on the other hand, is odd here. She acts unwitting to what's happening and as if this is a confirmation that her and Okarune can continue while Gigi is much the same as Ira. So let's observe what we have going on here and break it down. Momo and Okarune are lacking in communication right now, which, if we go back to Nessie, a big part of that fight was Momo and Okarune learning how to be open and communicate with one another. This is because she lost her memory, and thus there is no foundation for her to know how to even communicate effectively in the first place. Because without her memories, she doesn't remember how to communicate with her friends either, which is one of the ingredients of love and is the foundation of the Dum-Da-Dums and this manga as a whole. This is why Ira and Gigi act the way they do here. They remember these foundations and thus their actions are relatively normal on an instinctual level, like muscle memory or a good habit. It's second nature to act this way. So we get one of the most aggressive beating on Ira proper mandatory. We get the usual, but then Momo adds in a new one by calling her a dumb sow who wants to swindle both Okarune and Gigi into some salacious triangle, and also she is a crackhead Atori for the cherry on top. Seriously, is this the most aggressive we've seen Momo act in front of Ira? Like, what's next? A stabbing on Abbey Road? But things get really odd when Gigi tells Okarune to keep his relationship with Ira a secret because her most loyal fans will probably murder him Atori. But Gigi got the hookup. Yo, yeah, he got the hookup. He gonna protect little bro. So isn't this all just a little strange when reading this, right? I mean, this entire chapter, this entire arc, this entire interaction, something more nefarious is going on here that is causing this entire situation to unfold. That's my opinion. As this is happening, Happy Vomola, who is fresh off nearly being saved by Chainsaw Man in the recent Dandadan and Chainsaw Man crossover chapter I did a video on here, she's worried about Kenta not showing back up as she spots a child with konnyaku as she recalls Granny's takoyaki having konnyaku. So she goes to order a couple, one for her and then one for Kenta, which is so adorable. I have this insane theory that Vomola just may be the one who will save Kenta and the Dum-Da-Dums at large, because she is being presented as so simple in all of this. She's not caught up in all this other stuff, all this ego stuff, which will allow her to see all of the Dum-Da-Dums acting out of character, call that out, and because it's Vomola and everyone loves Vomola, they will be like, "Gods, what have I done? My mind has become muddled with these thoughts. I must seek forgiveness and redemption from the holy goddess, President Vomola." This is when she is confronted by Weirdo Bro covered with what looks to be like blood, Kenta's blood. And keep in mind, this shot is important in establishing that Vomola indeed has kaiju with her, as she is wearing it on her back. And I also don't believe Kenta is exactly messed up here. I think this is probably a little bit of a red herring, because it's pretty brutal for Dandadan. I mean, what's she going to do? Vomola's going to walk in and find Kenta's head cut off? I don't know. Could be. Probably not. Though Weirdo says for her to enter his establishment, as she must be worried about Kenta, who he calls her beau, her bae, her beau. Bu is bu? I don't know how to pronounce this word. Honestly, I've spent like 20 minutes before this script, like in a mirror, standing there and trying to pronounce this word, and it's bad. It's bad, guys. I think I'm dying. The chapter ends with Gigi, who is trying to comfort Momo, who can't explain why she is feeling angry. She can't explain why, and that lost memory is making her extremely anxious and now depressed as she starts to see herself as a real pain in the ass. Allow me to relate for a moment. As a bipolar and manic content creator, this is a very common thing that happens when you feel isolated. And because of that, we can, or at least I can, deduce here that Momo, more than anything, is feeling extremely isolated. The conflict coming from her friends trying to help her has now turned into a mess. In other words, everything is getting out of control, and to make matters worse, Dysonors are real and they've eaten Gigi. Good God, someone help! Okay, so the ending of this chapter is out of nowhere and unexpected and actually quite shocking, if you ask me. But let's really analyze the point of this chapter. It was more or less here to establish that the group is coming upon a massive amount of pressure and thus straining under the brunt of Momo's memory loss. Every single pillar is reeling and struggling to keep their family afloat, which is difficult to do because one of their family can't communicate anymore. And since the Dum-Da-Dums reject the ideas of rugged individualism and embrace the hope and unbreakable power of their communal bonds, which I apparently wrote here in the script as communal bongs, they're being taken advantage of because all the bad guys need to do is keep playing at this weakness and hope that they get so caught up in their dysfunction that they forget to communicate. Which for Momo is not impossible to do, but is hard to do when they're constantly either under attack or when it comes to Momo's individual issues. Like Seiko being in the hospital and nobody really knowing how best to help her with her memory to restore it. It creates a situation where the bad guys are running up the clock until Momo eventually learns or breaks the spell over her and regains all of her powers through regaining her memory. And let me tell you, when that moment happens, it will release and break every bit of that tension as if it never happened. Or at least it should, because the entire reason all of this is going down is only because of Momo's memory loss. There are no other special reasons or whatever going on here. Once you remove, let's metaphorically speaking, the cancer here, the body pretty much heals immediately, and that metaphor works so well in this situation. Now, as for the Dysonors, this is something I am really looking forward to, and I think is a fantastic, a fantastic addition to the arc, and even needed if you selfishly ask me, because Tatsu has the opportunity to create one of the best visual spectacles of the entire saga thus far. Not only that, but story-wise, it's poignant. It will put to the test how divided the Dum-Da-Dums are and where they stand on communication. Oh, glorious communication. We've seen in this arc that they've been divided up, and this chapter makes that very apparent. Momo and Gigi will have to fight Daisonors on their own. Kenta and Famola likely will be fighting the man who is responsible for the Daisonors, or God knows what else. And Okarun and Ira, well, I guess we'll see what they're doing, but if it were my guess, it would be that they'll fight their own set of pitfalls in the form of Daisonors, or, I don't know, a tall, like, I don't know. So once again, we trudge along as Dandadan fans in the face of really annoying talking points from readers who lack the patience and wherewithal to understand story, is on the right track and is not just okay, but is actually cooking up something I will continue to say that people will like. So when we get to the payoff of this arc, just remember the names of these people and what they said, and remind them in a friendly and respectful way that they're wrong here, respectfully wrong, and repeating some harmful patterns, and please urge them to stop that, because good God, as a content creator, I cringe and hurt every time I see these so-called controversial chapters come out, and they're in the grand scheme just people venting because their attention spans are fried from watching TikTok or playing Fortnite that week. That sounds like I'm deducing a lot of the criticism here, and I am, because good God, last week's chapter was fine. I don't know what the hell people were on about. Anyways, check out my video on Centuria's first 4 chapters, the New Beginnings arc, if you're looking for something new after Chainsaw Man's ending, and check out my most recent video on the Chainsaw Man and Dandadan crossover. Make it a great day, or not, the choice is yours.